Puncher's Punishment. We got the fallout from Bedlam at the Spectrum coming up. And Cowboys comeback way too early NFC playoff predictions. Never too early if you ask me. And Mendoza Mania. Bucky Brooks joins us live to talk draft. Yahoo Sports Daily starts right now. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. We've got a rack stack packed 2 hours for you this morning on Yahoo Sports Daily. Caroline, how we feel? We got Olympics. We're going to start with Olympics. I got the joy down in my heart. I feel like right now, just you and I we should be working on curling. We should be preparing for curling. It's the one sport maybe I don't know if we can pull it off, but I just want to get out there on ice with you at this point.
Have you seen the guy who broke the uphill skiing record where he's running on skis? It was like a sub 6-minute mile. That's what I don't want to do. So if we're going to make a list of things that we can do in the Olympics, which is probably an incredibly short list, if not even a list at all, that's one I don't want to do.
Yeah, no, what we can do is just buy a ticket and sit in the crowd. That's about the closest we'll be to being Olympians.
Correct.
But let's get to the Olympics because we've got a big day. We've had a big Olympics so far, and we've had some records. Speed skating superstar Jordan Stolz, I should say, won gold in the Olympic debut, beat the Olympic record by nearly a full second. We've talked a little about him over the course of this already. We expect he's going to have a massive, massive run, but this was a massive beginning to that entire process.
We talked with Apollo Anton-Ono earlier this week, and to get his perspective from Jordan Stolz, of course, somebody who I would say is probably the biggest name in the United States in speed skating, to hear his perspective and to hear him waxing as poetic as he was about Jordan Stolz got me so fired up to watch this race. Because if Apollo Ono is talking about how special he is, how much of a competitor he is, how he has all of these high expectations, how he has the opportunity to be one of the greatest, if not the greatest, to ever represent the United States in this sport, I thought, okay, that's going to put me on notice because I view Apollo Ono as one of the greatest to ever represent the United States in this sport. So obviously I was tuned in, I was locked in to what Jordan Stolz was doing yesterday, and it was an absolute blast. Fitz, it was everything that you wanted from one of these races, where he was about a second behind the guy that was in the lead, and I apologize, I don't have his name up in front of me, but the guy who ultimately ended up winning silver. Jordan Stolz made up an entire second on just one lap, and it was crazy listening to the speed skater that came in second. He had a press conference or an interview availability after the race, and he said it was almost terrifying because I could hear him coming. I could hear his skates. I could hear him breathing. I could hear him gaining on me, and there was nothing I could do about it. In my head, I'm thinking it was like the Jaws theme song, that it was like Jordan Stolz coming behind him like, Donna, and he was just an unstoppable force. It was a blast of a race to watch, and my entire timeline was covered with Jordan Stolz tweets and reactions to that race. It was really, really cool to see the nation captivated by him.
Well, and now what comes next for him, right? Because frankly, it's something we talked to Julia Mancuso earlier in the week. Like, what sort of momentum do you get from winning an early gold? And one thing she stressed is when you are a heavy favorite in multiple events, it can really catapult you. Well, let's acknowledge here, he's attempting to become the first American male since Eric Heiden in 1980 to win 3 individual gold medals at a single Olympics. He's favored in the remaining 2 events that he has, the 500 meter and then the 1500 meter, which is just a gauntlet that hits at a different level, right? So to me, to come out and just meet the expectation head on, get the gold, set the Olympic record, it just speaks to somebody that's locked in. It speaks to the momentum you can get, and it speaks to the chance to be remembered, right? One thing that the Olympics always provide us are these great memories that sort of stick with generations for future athletes. This feels like a real moment for him, not just because of this one race, but because of what we're looking across for the entire thing. Like, will he become, in your mind, the biggest star out of these Olympics?
I think he very well could. And that's what's so fun about each Olympic Games. We unlock a new character, so to speak, where
Right.
someone has an opportunity. So many athletes have opportunities to cement their legacies forever. We saw Simone Biles come onto the scene and become a certified superstar in her very first Olympics. We saw Katie Ledecky make a name for herself and cement herself on the Mount Rushmore of the greatest swimmers in American Olympic history, if not even just Olympic history. Feels like every new games we get a new person to root for, a new superstar that goes from someone we had never even heard of before in a sport that maybe we weren't really that interested in. All of a sudden, now they're a household name, and we can't get enough of watching what they do. So I do think that Jordan Stolz absolutely has the opportunity to do that. When I was just doing my research, digging through some articles yesterday, there were several headlines that I came across that read, Americans will realize why Jordan Stolz is a superstar in this Olympic Games. He is beloved and very, very famous in the Netherlands and several countries in Europe where speed skating is a 365-day-a-year sport. That's just not the case here in the United States. But if you win gold, if you win multiple golds, if you're breaking Olympic records and world records like he did yesterday, breaking the Olympic record in his race, then yes, absolutely. I do think he has the opportunity to cement himself as a star, the biggest star out of the Olympics. You got a whole lot of competition there, but I do think Jordan Stolz will become and should become a household name after the next couple of weeks.
It's all very fair by you, because I think when we start talking about star power, part of it has to be what launches you into the lexicon of everybody talking about you. Certainly winning multiple golds will do that for Jordan, and I take nothing away from that. I think it's absolutely an incredible Olympic story. But nothing changes the fact that certain sports in the Olympics are more destination for everybody to hang out and watch. We talked a lot about hockey debuting yesterday and why that's just something people gravitate to. Well, figure skating, we all know, is sort of one of those moments that every 4 years I joke that we all become experts on a triple Salchow. No idea what it is. But when you see that man right there, the quad god, Ilya Milan, like, to me, when you start talking household names, just the fact that the viral clip that just blew up everywhere of him doing a backflip on skates. And I go back to one thing he said that we talked about going into the Olympics. His goal wasn't just to win gold. His goal was to reinvigorate the popularity of figure skating in America. When you have images like that in a modern social media era, you are going to do a lot of that reinvigorating. So to me, while all of these athletes are going to get tremendous shine and they deserve it, they sacrifice so much to get to where they are. When you see something you're not used to seeing with sort of a rock star edge from a figure skater, I don't know how you top that when it comes to becoming a global sensation. I have a sneaking suspicion if the quad gods, if he's able to live up to his expectations in these games, he's going to be on the cover of every Wheaties box and going to be absolutely on every commercial in just a couple of weeks.
And there are certain sports, to your point, that I think resonate a little bit more with the casual audience. I cannot watch alpine skiing or speed skating and tell you the intricacies of why this skater or why this skier pulled ahead or why they're better or not. I watch it like a total dum-dum on my couch, like, oh, that guy's fast because that guy's in first. Thank you. That's more analysis by me coming up next. But in figure skating, gymnastics, diving, acrobatic kind of sports, like I think it's a little bit more palatable for the people at home to be watching and be like, oh, backflip on skates. Yep, like that's different. That is something that I haven't seen before. So it's the subjectivity of the sport that I think makes it so different and interesting. Swimming, speed skating, any sort of speed sport, any sort of sport that you're racing against the clock, that's one thing. But when you're judging beauty, when you're judging precision, when you're judging skill, when you're just being judged, period, not against the clock, but in technical type of skill, I feel like that's a little bit easier for audiences to resonate with, because we're all guilty of having shiny ball syndrome every once in a while. That it's okay, these guys skating really fast, these guys doing backflips on skates. Well, backflips on skates are a little bit easier to kind of to understand and rationalize as fans that really don't have a whole lot of context to a lot of these sports. But the fact of the matter is, Fitz, we're getting superstars.
At the end of the day, the athleticism only continues to get better every 4 years. And much like we are going to talk later in this very show about how impossible it is to fix some things around the NBA All-Star game. I often argue, how do you make a dunk more interesting when we've seen so many of them? Well, part of what we're seeing in the Olympics every 4 years is just the growth. And maybe it's because we look at it every 4 years with a careful eye. Maybe it's because the jump in athleticism is so spectacular. It just feels like we're seeing things now that felt humanly impossible just 3 or 4 Olympics ago. I do want to give a little bit of love to one of our biggest stars that's going to be out there. Chloe Kim later today will go for a three-peat in the women's halfpipe after topping the qualifying round. A reminder, she's doing all this on a torn labrum she sustained while training in January. How incredible is it that we're talking about somebody out here trying to win a gold? And yet again, Caroline, we're also talking about managing a tremendous injury and a ton of pain.
I think the story of this Olympic Games so far has just been the overwhelmingly impressive stories of grit, relentlessness, and overcoming adversity. It's everything that's pure and wonderful and great about sports. Chloe Kim is at the top of her sport. It's her and everybody else. It's Chloe Kim against the field. And this is one of the rare occurrences where I will take Chloe Kim over the field. Normally, I don't do that because the odds are not in your favor. In this case, I would take Chloe Kim, even with a torn labrum. I'm sure she's in pain. I'm sure mentally that's incredibly difficult for her to grapple with and to deal with, but she's still overcoming and she's still dominating opponents. I think it is so incredibly impressive. And while I wouldn't wish injury on anyone, it's really heartwarming to see how so many of these Olympic athletes are working through some really difficult things physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever it might be, on their path to greatness.
I mean, desperation comes in part in scarcity, right? There are very few opportunities to show what you can do and get the prize that you've worked your entire life for. The Olympics is only every 4 years. There aren't, 160 games. There aren't 80 games. There aren't 17 games. There aren't any of those. This is a once every 4-year opportunity. So an injury is just something you really have no choice but to battle through, right? Because you wait so long to get these opportunities, and so much of what you want your legacy to be built is not built from X Games. It's not built from world championships. It's built from Olympic medals. That's what we remember, and that's what we talk about. So I think you see a different level of gritness and toughness, not only because the sport they are all involved in demands it, not only because they're Olympians, which means something. They're representing their country, which means something to everybody, but also when you only have one shot every 4 years, and you know it, and you know that the next time you come back, you have no idea what the conditions are going to be, what your age is going to be, what injury you'll be fighting then. I think it just changes sort of the entire approach. So I think one of the real things we've learned throughout this course of this Olympics is that the toughness needs to be talked about more. It needs to be better covered from all of these athletes, because certainly they put their bodies on the lines and they only get the chance to do it every few years, which is part of what makes it special. Speaking of injuries, do want to get everybody updated. We have obviously Lindsay Vonn. All eyes and all thoughts and prayers have been with Lindsay Vonn for a minute in this process. She posted on social media, had my third successful surgery today, and it was successful. I'm making progress, and while it is slow, I know I'll be okay. Just a tremendous reminder of how heartbreaking this is for Lindsay and how long the road is still ahead of her as she tries to recover.
God, talk about a freaking warrior. Talk about toughness. Like, my leg hurts just looking at the contraption that is on hers. The level of gratitude that she still has, even though I'm sure she's dealing with so much devastation and frustration, all of those negative feelings that come from not being able to see through this really hard and difficult road that she's been going on the past couple of years. But man, I just feel like the whole country is behind Lindsay Vonn. The entire sport of skiing is behind Lindsay Vonn, and I hope she feels that.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, this is just, I keep going back to 13 minutes. That's how long she was on the slopes after she was injured. And you see what she's going through now, and you think about just the agony and the amount of times that she's just have to face her own sort of process in this process. It's heartbreaking. It'll be interesting to see how she comes back. But one thing we know is that the spirit of Lindsay Vonn is absolutely undefeated. More Olympic updates to come throughout the day, as we always keep you caught up on everything you need to know straight from Italy right here. But coming up next, I just mentioned it, we'll do it next. We've figured out solutions to how to make the dunk contest interesting. We'll rate them. We'll score them next for you on Yahoo Sports Daily.
At the very top of my list, we need finality to Aspinall versus Gunn.
Yeah.
We need finality to this.
Have to.
I just want to see this fight play out because guess what? It was a very entertaining fight and it was playing out in a way that I think a lot of people didn't think it would play out. So I need to see that fight. I have to see that fight. The division needs to see that fight. They both need to see that fight. They both earned it and deserved it, and we can't move on without that fight.
Do the Spurs still take Dylan Harper over Con Knippel and VJ Edgecombe?
I think for me, if I was to do it all over again, I would still take the best pick available, and that is Dylan Harper. I mean, you see, he just is such an elite creator.
Prior to the draft, Mo, I was pretty consistent in saying that I would trade down and take a Con Knippel. Con at 4, I still think would have been the best possible outcome for San Antonio, and I feel that way even more strongly at this point.
All football teams are dams. Some of them have a ton of cracks. Some of them have a few cracks. It's all about who faces enough water pressure from their schedule to expose the cracks. Most of the time when you're playing in the Big Ten or the SEC, you're going to face several tests that will expose your cracks. I don't think Ohio State did this year. They faced Texas early in the year, and they just never faced enough pressure to expose the cracks.
Did you notice that the scoring totals had fallen in the new year, that the New Year's resolution apparently was to bring physicality back?
A couple of years ago when it was all of a sudden everybody scored 50, 60, 70. And then like the air went out of the ball for a month. And it was like in the middle of the season, the way the rules were being called kind of changed and scoring started to drop.
Look, to be fair, Dan, it could be, hey, everyone just magically figured out how to play legal defense.
Oh, look at those scores. That's because it's almost time for the dunk contest, which means people get to score things randomly, which is what we are about to do on Yahoo Sports Daily. A little dunk contest judging, but it comes with the twist. Everybody's trying to figure out how to fix the dunk contest. We've come up with some suggestions. Our staff has come up with some suggestions. The world has them. So we've been tasked with ways to fix the dunk contest. So, Caroline, what we're going to do is we're going to put the idea up, and then we are going to score it, all right? So we've got pieces of paper. We've got big old scores written down. We'll see whose penmanship was better also in the process of this. And then we will figure let me just say I did not do well in art class, so this could be an abject disaster. All right. So, Caroline, one way to get the superstars back into the dunk contest. You ready for this one? How about we bring a Bugatti out to center court, $1 million sports car, winner walks with it. What do you think of this idea?
I first of all, let me just say, I just love the fact that our fixes aren't like, oh, let's try and do a little bit of this. No, $1 million car in the middle of the court, boom, fixed. I will give this one like a 6. Now, in terms of star factor and just like shock factor, wow value, like it's a 10. But I'm thinking about this maybe a little bit too much, a little bit too deep, because I'm thinking, what happens when somebody goes up to try and dunk over the Bugatti and then they fall and then their foot hits the windshield and then the windshield cracks and then now that player's on the hook for fixing the windshield on $1 million car and he's like, well, I don't want to pay for this. I didn't sign up for this, and then the insurance gets involved and then somebody's hurt because there's glass on the court. Like maybe I'm thinking too much about it, but I don't want to be the one to watch a smashed Bugatti on national television.
Well, especially because when you've got G League guys sometimes going out there trying to win the dunk contest, it's easier to dunk over a Kia than it is a Bugatti. I'm just saying they are slightly different values. However, you've almost caught the idea. I gave this an 8. I'm gonna find the way to put this
lovely
on camera.
8 fits.
Thank you. It's sort of a snowman, but it's also sort of an 8.
Oh,
I gave this an 8,
season.
but it's. And thank you so much. And never too late. I gave it an 8 because you're almost right on with the idea. I want somebody in the Bugatti chasing people while they dunk. Now we're talking. Like dunking with it. If you win, you get it. But if you don't win, like how many times do we see them miss the first dunk and then they go for it the second or third time? If the Bugatti like gets it, like after the first, you get one shot, you get one dunk. And after that, the Bugatti can come after you. Now all of a sudden we're really earning $1 million car. I like this.
I love that we are now living in an era of sports fans of like player safety, take care of the players, listen to your body, go to the training room. The trainer can take care. And Fitz is like, I'm going to run him down going 80 miles an hour in a sports car. And if you can't outrun it, that's on you.
Oh, you know
It's
what?
like
You've made it even
Gladiator.
better. Well, and now, when you get down to the final two dunkers, you could have, while one person is dunking, the other finalist is in the Bugatti. Now all of a sudden, like, they're going after each other.
Ooh.
I'm bringing Mario
So
Kart
you're
straight
fighting
to the dunk
to the
contest.
death.
You're welcome, America. You're welcome. All right, how about this? All right, since that idea is never going to, insurance will never fly with that one. The next one comes from, we're going to go this one. All right, we're going to go, getting a little two birds, one stone here. We're going to fix the dunk contest, and we're going to end load management. We're going to do it all at once. How about this? If players miss a certain number of games due to load management, they're forced into the pool of dunk contest eligible players. So if you've missed a certain number of games, you must dunk. What do you think?
Womp womp. 3. Now, the reason why it's not lower is because we would get names like Embiid, the Joker, Wemby, not necessarily because of load management, but just the number of players that have missed a decent amount of games this season. If you put them in the dunk contest, yeah, the star power gets ratcheted up a whole lot. Like LeBron. Who wouldn't sign up for that too? Thank you. Like you're getting superstars in the dunk contest. But sometimes, Fitz, sometimes I question how much players really want to play on any given Wednesday night. Why are we going to make NBA players do even more of things that they don't want to do? Isn't that the problem with the All-Star game in the first place? Ain't nobody care. Nobody wants to be there. Like, they don't care about it. So if they don't care about it, how am I supposed to care about it? So we're going to force these guys to do things that they probably don't want to do?
Okay, you're
You
right.
fix load management,
and
maybe.
Your score's right, but I'm going to give it a little bit higher score because, as usual, I'm going to tweak this thing. I'm going to give it a 6. All right, I'm going to give it a 6. Another big 6 there. Here's what I'm doing, though. I'm tweaking it. I'm saying this. If you've missed a certain number of games to where you are no longer eligible for postseason awards or postseason acknowledgments that can impact your contract. So you're no longer eligible for MVP. You're no longer eligible to be All NBA. You're no longer eligible for any of those sort of awards. You can earn your eligibility back in the dunk contest. I see. Now all of a sudden, I'm giving people, and you don't have to participate. But man, if you've missed enough games, like we're sitting here saying, well, LeBron can't be on the All NBA team. Well, what if he's in the dunk contest? See, I'm using it as an incentivizer, Caroline. Instead, you're right. I don't want to put everybody out there that doesn't want to be out there. But if all of a sudden winning the dunk contest would regain your eligibility for postseason awards, now we're going to see guys coming out knowing that all of a sudden it changes their supermax. It changes their, $30-40 million on the line. That's what we're talking about.
But what if they're actually hurt?
I mean, only makes it
We're
even
gonna
better
say,
if they're
"Oh,
hobbling it.
hey, I know that you're scooting around on a scooter because you tore your ACL. Knock on wood, wouldn't hope that on anybody. But you still have to participate in the dunk contest because you need your extra mil on your incentives on your contract. So good luck out there. Wish you nothing but the best. We'll get you a ramp so you can really kind of give yourself a running start on your scooter."
Okay, you're right, but then all of a sudden, think about the social media memes where like a person with the limp, it's like wobble is playing while they try and run up for their dunk, or like boot, scoot, and boogie while they're out there on their scooter.
Someone's got like a neck brace on.
Oh, yeah, neck brace.
Out there doing this.
That's full semi-pro. We are going full semi-pro. All right, the next suggestion comes from producer Josh. All right, how about this one? Social media dunkers, and a ton of those guys out on YouTube and everywhere else, they participate in the dunk contest while NBA players judged. And they're mic'd up, and to incentivize everything, maybe there's a little bit of liquid incentivization at the table. Like we're letting them get a little tanked while they do it. They're getting tanked while they judge the social media dunkers. What do we think?
10. I love that. I love that idea because as somebody that wants to enjoy the dunk contest, but it's just the star power is not there. I would love if we had certified superstars in the NBA They had a little something something up in their cup, getting a little bit of liquid courage, and they're making fun of or reacting to, freaking out to streamers and influencers trying to do what NBA players do. I mean, this is what we've wanted to happen in the Olympics for so long, right? We want just like a normal person to do a triple sow cow so we can all get an idea of how difficult it is. So we have a point of comparison for these Olympians. That's kind of what this would be. So I'm here for it. I think it would be a blast. I would love to get real, genuine reaction from so many NBA players. It'd be so fun.
I think this also needs to replace the celebrity game. Like, I want to see Kevin Hart dunk on a 5-foot rim. I gave this a 9, and mostly I gave this a 9 out of 10 because I already had the 6.
That's just an upside down 6. Okay.
Yeah, I just took the 6 and I made the 6. Well, you know what? I'll do the least. That's the life motto. I gave it a 9. I like this idea, although I still think that at the end of the day, social media dunkers, many of them get 52 shots at it before they actually post their clip. I wonder if they would have the you-know-whats to put themselves out there when it's live and they don't get a second take. How about this one? No, this one came from another producer. All right, how about this? Floor's lava. Literally lava floor, parts of the court, piping hot. You never know where it's going to pop up. They fall in. That's on them. We give them a full lava court, and then we make them dunk. What do you think?
I'm starting to think that maybe when we were coming up with these ideas, maybe we were participating in some liquid courage having as well. I gave this one Dr. Evil because what the heck kind of Dr. Evil idea is this? Magma, liquid, hot magma. Like, wasn't it Dr. Evil that had sharks with laser beams on their heads in the floor? Like, what a twisted idea this is. And look at poor Hugo back there. Poor Hugo the Hornet. He has to cover his eyes because he's so scared of LeBron falling in the lava. Don't do that to Hugo. Don't make him
here's
see
the thing.
that.
You're right, but at the same time, I give this a 10.
No.
Because you know why?
Fitz, you're twisted.
People would watch. I'm just saying, like, we sit there and say, this is, like, we just watch somebody climb a building. And if we injected truth serum in our veins, we'd admit that most people watched it just to see if he actually made it to the top, which means we were really watching it to see if he would fall. I'm just saying, we would watch this and people would just nobody would participate. But, like, look, we can live in a dream world. I want this dream world to become a reality. All right, what about this one? The no dunk contest. We just end it. We just let this thing die. What do you think? We just get rid of the dunk contest altogether. What do you give that as a score?
This isn't going to be very popular, but I am like 6.
Wait, that's the same 6 you used
maybe?
before. I call you out. That is the
No,
same
it's
6 ...
not.
question
What are you
mark.
talking
That is the
about?
same. Yeah.
No, it's not. Okay, well, I only had 2 pieces of paper, so I folded them in half. And we had
I
5
respect
answers,
that.
so I had to
respect that.
reuse one of them. This is not arts and crafts class, all right? But I did use my my Jeremiah Love Sharpie, so shout out to Jeremiah Love. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeremiah.
I hate this because I love the dunk contest and I love the home run derby. I love skills contests like this. Like, these are fun. These are things that I think just the average fan can enjoy. But if you're going to do it, you have to do it right. And if you don't do it right, then you shouldn't be doing it at all. And if you're not doing it right, then you open yourself up to all of the criticism that the dunk contest and the NBA All-Star Game have gotten. Like, let's go back to those days. Like, those were the golden years of the NBA dunk contest. We have gone so far away from that if there's no way to get back to the Michael Jordans in the dunk contests and the certified superstars in the dunk contest, if the stars of today's NBA aren't going to do it and aren't going to participate, then, like, why are we doing it at all?
I agree with you, and that's why I give the idea 3 of getting rid of it, because I love it, but you're right. It's just hard. I think the real answer to the dunk contest is when Michael Jordan flew from the free throw line. That was something unprecedented that nobody had ever seen and nobody thought they would ever see. And now nothing is unprecedented because everything's been done. The one thing we haven't seen, though, I mean, you invoked the name, I invoked the name. What if we brought them all back? What if instead of the dunk contest, I'll give you my perfect 10 idea. What if instead of the dunk contest, we bring this 10 idea in, the unk contest, right? We bring all the old school guys back onto the court. We let them dunk it out. I don't care if they need ice knees. It needs to be brought to you by Ben Gay. I don't care. Their bodies are going to hurt afterwards. Give me all the legends out on the court, showing me old man strength while they unk their way through the dunk contest. This is We figured it out. We've got the solution the world needs.
I love the
I want all the
contest.
OGs. Look at this.
I go back to Michael Jordan being scared to shoot a free throw in front of it's in front of a kid because he was so afraid of missing it. This idea doesn't work unless you get the Michael Jordans, unless you get, the greatest of the greats back. But if they're down, I'm here for it. Maybe they all need to get Bugattis.
Make the prize big enough and they will all come. In the meantime, we'll keep breaking down actual NBA news and notes next with one of our favorites and one of the best in the business. Tom Haberstroh going to join us. We'll figure out what to make of the Clippers coming up next.
One school that's doing some work in there right now, very quietly, is the Florida Gators. At the time of us taping this, Florida is sitting there with a top 10 class. And you're like, JD, wait a second. Florida's got a top 10 class? Who have they added? And I think this portal class in general for John Summerall is a good reflection of just the overall vibe, attitude, persona of what you're going to get from John Summerall during his time in Gainesville.
And I've been thinking about the Denver Nuggets here for a little bit. Jamal Murray's gonna have to carry the torch during this program. Like I know it's the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air looking around and no furniture around, but hey, he's gonna have to figure it out. What I will say that helps Denver is the return of this version of Aaron Gordon. And I very specifically mean this version of Aaron Gordon. And I know you might have a twinge of concern that he may do too much, but it was good early and they need it now.
Have you had a chance to kind of unpack all of it?
Yeah, I don't know that I have yet. I think it's just another reminder of how wild pro football can be. I've lived it so many times. I mean, I think going back a little over 2 years ago when I tore my Achilles to now, there's been a lot of curveballs and a lot of change. And I was told a long time ago in pro football, you got to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I'm reminded of that time and again.
How long do you feel like that window is with Lamar, though?
I think you can get 2 more years of Lamar as a locked-in top 5 guy. And then I think after that is when it's like, okay, maybe he ages to more being a top 12 guy, which is still good. Maybe more of a tier 2 guy in my brain. And then it kind of ages from there. Russ went from like a tier 2 guy that fell off to a tier 3, tier 4 guy. You're going to have that drop off at some point in your career.
Pablo Torre tweets out exclusive. The Clippers okayed kickbacks to Kawhi Leonard's uncle Dennis, sources tell Pablo, along with the documented trail of LLCs, an apparent NBA pay cut, and the feds chasing Aspiration. Then Clippers GM asked, how many side deals have we made with Kawhi? This story had so much traction early on, and now it feels like it's just lost in the noise, and I don't know why. Tom Haberstroh joins us now. Tom, where are we on this? Like, what's it going to take for everybody to care as much today as they did when all of this news first started dropping?
Well, I'll tell you, when the Clippers traded James Harden and Ivica Zubac, that was the first thing that came to my mind. Is do they know something that we don't know about this investigation with Aspiration and Kawhi Leonard and the allegations within those? I feel like no one saw those trades coming a month ago. And then suddenly the Clippers are pivoting as an organization. And all of the things we had heard up until that point was preserve cap space, preserve cap space, preserve cap space. And then all of a sudden, James Harden's gone. Ivica Zubac is gone. They decided to prioritize a pick with the Indiana Pacers to try to get into this year's draft. And so they've done a complete 180 on the organizational future, except for Kawhi Leonard. They've kept him in the house. They've extended Lawrence Frank, the president of basketball operations. And amid all of this is this investigation being led by a law office commissioned by the NBA that we don't know the particulars of. But on their side, I'm sure they've been interviewed. I'm sure they've sat down and had discussions. I am sure that they have more information than we do as the public. Now, this weekend is the All-Star game, and Adam Silver will be fielding questions from the media on Saturday afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern. And so we'll probably get a lot of clarifications about where this investigation stands, considering he will be fielding those questions, you guys, within Steve Ballmer's building of the Intuit Dome. Kawhi Leonard is an all-star. James Harden is not. And what we're seeing is all these questions are swirling at the wrong time for the league office, because we have tanking questions. We've got lots of Giannis Antetokounmpo. Just where is he going? Where does everything stand with that? Do we like how superstars are going in and out of the trade talks while having a partnership with a prediction market? All of these questions are swirling, but none are more pressing than this situation with Kawhi Leonard and the Aspiration investigation into the dealings with him. And we have a GM here. According to Pablo Torre's sourcing, the GM of the Clippers was saying out loud, the quiet part out loud, how many side deals do we have with Kawhi Leonard? Allegedly, this is what was said in a meeting. So, look, the NBA has been digging into this story, but I will tell you, me personally, covering this league, when they decided to pivot a couple weeks ago ahead of the trade deadline, my ears perked up a little bit regarding the outcome of this Aspiration investigation.
I want to go back in time to when we first learned about the aspiration of it all. I mean, it was the biggest story in sports. We were all talking about it. All of our jaws were on the floor of how could this possibly happen? Fast forward to now, it feels like all of the new things that we're learning about this situation don't have the same amount of attention or shock value that they initially had. Do you feel like there's maybe some Clippers fatigue going on amongst NBA fans?
Well, I think what Steve Ballmer and the organization was banking on was the fact that games would distract everyone from this investigation. That as soon as Kawhi Leonard and James Harden took the floor, a lot of the smoke around this story would start to clear. Now, Kawhi Leonard is having an MVP type season for a team that's under 500. They were the laughing stock of the league about a couple months ago with the Chris Paul situation starting at 6-21. But right up until they traded James Harden and Ivica Zubac, they were pretty much the best team in the NBA for a better portion of a month. And so if you're wondering why this story seemed to take to the back burner, I think you got to start with the actual basketball on the floor. It's gotten a lot better for the Clippers, and Kawhi Leonard seems completely undeterred by this investigation, playing some of the best basketball we've seen him play in his entire 2 Finals MVP career. And I think that is a big reason why this isn't front and center. Also, there's just a lot of other scandals happening in the league. When this story first dropped with regarding Aspiration and the side deals with Kawhi Leonard, there was no gambling scandal in the NBA yet. And so when you are having that other bomb that is dropped onto the NBA, I think that is what you're seeing is there's just so many lawsuits, investigations happening at the league office that it's hard to keep all of your attention on this one story here. But rest assured, when the All-Star game is at Steve Ballmer's building, and at the end of this Pablo Torre report, he is saying that he has word that there was a potential government whistleblower within Aspiration that had written a complaint to the federal government about some improper dealings, illegal dealings, alleged illegal dealings regarding Joe Sandberg, who was running the Aspiration company at the time. So what Pablo is raising is, was Steve Ballmer a part of that complaint, a part of that whistleblowing document report to the government? And if so, does the league office know about that? And that question is hanging over this Clippers organization as we head into this All-Star weekend, in which Adam Silver will be taking questions from reporters on Saturday afternoon.
Based only on what I know, we got to move on, but based only on what you know so far today, as we sit right now, as we tape this, how does this play out? What's the effective punishment in your mind?
I don't know how this plays out because this is unprecedented. What we're seeing here with the richest owner in sports being investigated for the second time with cap circumvention. Remember, DeAndre Jordan, the league found that they had illegally, according to the league rules, offered DeAndre Jordan benefits that were improper. And they found them that they actually committed that basketball crime of doing that. So the precedence here, that there has been a history here, especially with the tampering and Uncle Dennis, this is all swirling to the point where I think the trust in the league office, all the other owners and GMs and players and agents are waiting to see how Adam Silver plays this, because you don't want the appearance that Adam Silver is picking favorites based on how much money you have and how much weight you can throw around in the NBA office. Remember, Steve Ballmer was heading up the auditing committee at the league office. And so the impropriety or conflict of interest that raises the stakes here, I think, make this a really complicated situation. So how this will play out, I really don't have a good idea of what Adam Silver will do here, simply because we just have never seen anything like this regarding the Kevin Garnett, Joe Smith fiasco with Glenn Taylor and the Minnesota Timberwolves. He was one of the lowest rung owners in the NBA. This isn't the richest guy, one of the richest guys in the world that we're talking here. So this is definitely an unprecedented situation when it comes to the power that Steve Ballmer has, and certainly the allegations within this organization.
We'll wait to see what punishments there are, if there's punishments at all for this. But it didn't take the NBA too long to hand out punishments for Pistons, Hornets players that were all involved in what we are affectionately calling on the show Bedlam at Spectrum. How many games are the players involved looking at? And do you think that those punishments were fair?
They were fair. It's hard to criticize the league office on this one when you're talking about Isaiah Stewart leaving the bench and charging after Miles Bridges, who is not innocent in this either, right? Like, you can't have a guy leaving the bench. I heard the Stone Cold Steve Austin glass breaking as I'm watching Isaiah Stewart running across the court there. It was an insane scene, considering this was spilling out into the crowd. You had courtside fans pointing to the referee to say, hey, there's another fight going on over there. It was a bad look for the NBA. And it does have huge import on the East race, because we're talking about the number 1 seed Detroit Pistons, who are trying to fend off the Boston Celtics, New York Knicks, and the Cleveland Cavaliers that just added James Harden. And they're going to be without Isaiah Stewart for 7 games here, which is important because 6 of those 7 games were against winning clubs. And when one of those games is against the Cleveland Cavaliers, that certainly makes this way more hurtful for the Detroit Pistons, especially Jalen Durham, 2-game suspension. They were able to win one of those games last night. But when you see Jalen Durham out for 2 games and Isaiah Stewart out for 7 with this really tough schedule up ahead, the Detroit Pistons hold on the number 1 seed certainly loosens up. And I do think that the NBA did have to come down hard here. Miles Bridges and Moussa Diabate are 2 really key members of the Charlotte Hornets, and they're like the best story in the NBA going on right now. And so this hurts on both sides, and certainly makes the East race a lot more interesting because of those suspensions and how good Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart are.
All right, so speaking of drama in the league, and you mentioned Adam Silver is going to speak on Saturday. We know he's going to be asked about tanking. Tom, I don't think that there's an easy solution. I can't figure one out. You're smarter than I am. How do they fix the tanking problem that we seem to have right now?
Oh, it's an easy solution. It's just going to be very painful, right? Is you get rid of the draft. You do a signing day for these incoming rookies rather than assigning draft picks to guys, to teams who are the worst teams in the NBA. Look, Adam Silver and the commissioner's office are right to say that the integrity of the league is the foremost important thing. But you cannot ensure 100% integrity in a sport that incentivizes losing. That's it. The current structure incentivizes teams to lose, and we can only see this from years past, how many times we see teams trying to lose games at the end of the season. And if they're not trying to lose, why is the NBA coming down with 6-figure fines on teams at the end of the season for the Dallas Mavericks when they tanked to get their pick back in order to draft Derek Lively in that draft? And of course, last year we saw some shenanigans at the end of the year, especially with the Toronto Raptors. People aren't talking about this, but the Toronto Raptors were pulling their best players off the floor in clutch minutes last year to try to improve their draft lottery odds. So what we're seeing with the Utah Jazz currently, there's precedent last year. We saw this with the Raptors, and the NBA did not come down hard on that. But if you really want to fix tanking, all these half measures about, we'll start the draft lottery odds positioning at March 1st, or we'll get rid of pick protections, those are nothing. Those won't do much at all to ensure the integrity of the league. If you really want to ensure the integrity of the league, you have to rip apart the draft and just say, we're going to do what college sports does. you want to go get a player, you got to go get them. And there isn't some sort of draft lottery that we're going to hand out draft ping pong balls based on how bad you are and how bad your record is. So there is precedence in other leagues around the world. And I really think that if the NBA is serious about the integrity of the league, you just got to kill the draft guys. And I know that sounds painful, but it certainly is the cleanest solution.
It feels like to me every proposed solution for tanking just creates new problems. Like it just doesn't feel like a problem that feels fixable. But I want to talk about the top of the league. Enough of the bottom of the league, of those who are tanking. The top of the East has been fascinating. You mentioned the Pistons, with the Knicks, the Cavs, the Celtics, all have chances at getting to the top of the East. How would you power rank those 4 teams?
It's really tough. Before the suspensions, I would say probably I would have Detroit number 1 on that list. But I'm telling you, the James Harden Cavs are coming. This is a team, when you're talking about the Cleveland Cavaliers with James Harden, Donovan Mitchell in that backcourt, the way that they score the ball and the way things seem so fluid, this is maybe the most important trade of the deadline when it comes to just the top and the bottom. Like when we're talking about the teams that are going to be facing the Cavs, they're going to have, they were having 13 games against teams that incentivized to lose. Heading into yesterday's games, they just beat the pants off of their opponent last night, and now you're seeing another set of games against really bad teams. So the Cavs have a really soft schedule going forward, 12 games against the 10 teams at the bottom of the standings for the rest of the year. That ranks among the most in the league. And when you look at the rest of the schedule, that's really important because the Cavs are going to be facing the Detroit Pistons a couple more times, and one of those games is without Beef Stew. So given the schedule and the addition of James Harden, the way that they've been playing without Evan Mobley, I think the Cavs have an underrated case, and I would nudge them a little bit higher than the Detroit Pistons to win the East and ultimately be the representative in the NBA Finals against what I think is going to be the Oklahoma City Thunder. Wouldn't that be interesting? James Harden in the NBA Finals looking for his first title against his former team, the only team that he has been to the NBA Finals with the Oklahoma City Thunder, and trying to win that elusive title against the Thunder. It would be epic, epic drama.
I love the storyline you've created. I'm now rooting for this just because the storyline wins. You guys win if you check out the big number. Follow him on social media at Tom Haberstroh. Tom, always appreciate your brilliance, my friend. Enjoy some All-Star fun. We appreciate you getting us caught up on everything.
You got it, guys.
Thanks, Tom.
Great stuff from Tom. All right, speaking of the NBA, we're going to get you some first half winners and losers, teams, players, all of it coming up next.
Penn State has imported Iowa State. It's the best way I could explain it. Penn State has now taken Rocco Beck. They took RB1. They took wide receiver 1. They took 3 offensive linemen. I detest that this is how college football works at the moment, but it's the way it works at the moment. And that is when you take a head coach, part of the thinking behind hiring the head coach is who he can bring with him. And in Matt Campbell's case, it was basically whoever he wants.
I'm very fascinated to see which direction they go here because I think that Roman, this is the deal with him. He's not terrible. He's not offensive as an offensive coordinator, but he can get you to a certain point. You need somebody else to get you to the next point. I think he's done a good job with Herbert getting him to run more and getting him to push the ball down the field. Now I'd like to see, someone kind of just, again, give him some more quicker options. That's the type of stuff I'd like to see from the next coach.
Tom Aspinall, Cyril Gahn, that needs to be resolved, right? Hamzat Shemaev versus Sean Strickland. But I will accept Hamzat Shemaev versus Fluffy Hernandez. If Fluffy beats Sean Strickland, I'll take either of those. Here's another one of my, but you accept these as secondary.
100%.
Armin Sarukian versus UFC lightweight champion. We cannot just keep having Armin doing grappling matches and eating and all this stuff. He
I'm
must
kind of okay
fight
with
for
it.
No, I'm not.
No,
I know you love it.
You get the first pick in the underrated player draft. Who are you taking?
Jalen Duren has never made an All-Star game. He's never made an All-NBA team. He's gotten so much better as a scorer this year. Jalen Duren is like a legit All-Star this year. And so because everybody talks about the Detroit situation like it's trash and Cade Cunningham, I'm going to say he's still a little bit underrated, and he's my number 1 pick.
Luna has been tabbed to roll out the NBA. See what we did there? Roll out the NBA All-Star Saturday festivities with a concert to kick off the AT&T Slam Dunk Contest. John Tesh, I don't know why we're not equally excited about that, will perform basketball to usher in Sunday's All-Star game. It is All-Star weekend. We are ready for the festivities, Caroline Fenton. But this marks the halfway point, right? So we're right around this point. It's technically not exactly that point, but this is what we do. So we're going to figure out some winners, losers at the halfway mark, and we'll start with team. What team do you think right now is the biggest winner at the halfway mark of the season?
Tom Haberstroh, I think it's the Cavs. They're the beneficiaries of some of these Pistons suspensions, so their spot in the top of the East is vulnerable. And with last night's win, they're on a 5-game winning streak. That is the longest active win streak in the NBA right now. They're 17-5 since December 29th. That's the best record in the NBA since then. They're 10-1 since January 21st. And I think James Harden makes the Cavs significantly better. We talked to Kenyon Martin just a couple of days ago, who said he didn't think that trade did much. And look, Kenyon Martin has more basketball knowledge in his pinky than I will ever have in my entire body. But I have to disagree. I think James Harden does make the Cavs better. I think they're the winners at the trade deadline. Yes, they got older, but they got better. Their chances at punching their tickets to the finals, I think, got better. So honestly, I think it's the Cavs.
Look, I like that call to a certain extent. It's just, here's my issue that I'm going to have with the Cavs the entire way. As I was just reminded during the break, the Cavs were my preseason East favorite. I picked them to go to the NBA Finals. Yeah, I wouldn't pick them now. And the thing of it is that they're playing really well, but James Harden's legacy will never be carved out of what he does in the regular season. I don't trust in a playoff series that James Harden will actually show up for the entirety of the thing. Like, he'll have moments and everybody will say, "Oh, this is perfect." And then when the moment's big and the pressure's mounted, he will shrink, because that's what he's done every time he's been in that situation. So they're a winner today, but they're not a winner overall for me, because they picked up somebody that will help them win regular season games. No proof of concept that he will help them actually win a Larry O.B. So if I'm going to take a winner at the halfway mark, I want to take a team that we didn't expect to be where they were. I almost picked the Spurs, because the Spurs have been really good against OKC this year, and that's unexpected. But I'll go with the Celtics as a winner here. Like, if I told you coming in to this portion of the season, the Celtics would be in contention to win the East, everybody would have told me I was crazy. If we go back to what we expected for this team when it all tipped off, it was, how do they survive this year? Could they just find their way into the playoffs and hope to God that Tatum can come back from the Achilles? Can he lead him? Instead, we're reminded that maybe they didn't have Batman and Robin. Maybe they had Batman and Batman, right? Like, we spent so much time wondering what Tatum would mean that we stopped remembering that Jaylen Brown was there too. And I think part of what we've seen from Boston so far, their ability to, again, have depth, something that I champion all the time on this team, and they still have a superstar that leads them when they need the points. The Celtics way ahead of where anybody thought they would be. I think they're big winners going into this, and I think they have a legit shot of coming out of the East, which is wild to say. So I give them the winner because the expectations weren't there. What about what player? What player is the biggest winner to you of the first half of the season?
To your point, I think there's a very strong case for Jaylen Brown. I think the easy, low-hanging fruit answer is SGA. I mean, he's most likely going to win league MVP. He's scoring 32 points a game. He's reliable. He's consistent. You could make an argument for Jokic, and to that I would say, well, SGA is far more available than Jokic has been for the entirety of the season, but all of those feel obvious, right? All of those feel like, he didn't really take a whole lot of thought there. So if I'm going to take the hipster answer, Jonathan Kuminga, he's my winner at this point in the season, because he has been flirting with wanting out of Golden State for so long. The writing was on the wall. He was clearly miserable in Golden State, and finally, he gets his out. So congratulations to Jonathan Kuminga for that. He's free at last.
That is glorious to be who would ever thought we'd say somebody was a winner for getting out of Golden State, but that was just a bad marriage from both sides of it. I'll take a slightly hipster answer, but a less funny clip on it. As a player that won the first half of the season, I'll go with somebody in your city, Con Knipple, right? When we came into this year,
Rhodey.
everybody was ready to just anoint Cooper Flagg as the guy out of this rookie class. And instead, I'm looking at a guy that's playing 32 minutes a game. I'm looking at a guy that's averaging over 18 points a game, 5.5 boards a game. When you talk about just the ascension, when you talk about what he is doing, his shooting percentage through the roof, one of the best rookie shooters we've ever seen. Konkanippel was sort of a forgotten portion of this. We talked a lot about him last year when we were covering college basketball, but even in those combos, there wasn't the same level of, oh, wow, this guy is going to immediately impact the NBA. We get obsessed sometimes with expectation. I think when you exceed expectation at an alarming level, you won. So Rookie of the Month in January, I think right now, if you take brand bias out of it for what we expected for any player, it's pretty clear that Konkanippel is the Rookie of the Year, and he's a big part of why Charlotte is so far ahead of where we thought they would be. So I give him biggest winner. What about take the opposite side? We've done the positive. Let's go to Nancy negative here. Which team is your biggest loser of the first half of the season? Oh, let me say this. That means which team needs to move. Get out the way. I should
get out the way. Get out the way.
Okay.
To follow up on my Jonathan Kuminga point, I think it's Golden State. Like, oh, how the mighty have fallen. That they were the recent dynasty in the NBA, and now it just feels like Golden State's it doesn't have a plan. They don't have a vision. They're old. There's question marks about Steph Curry's future in Golden State. There's question marks about Steve Kerr's future in Golden State. There's just all of these questions, and no answer is going to get them on the path to getting back to championship contention without pulling this thing down to the studs. So I think things are going to get really uncomfortable for Golden State fans for the first time in a long time. But honorable mention, Milwaukee. I know that Giannis is staying in Milwaukee, and that's a great feeling. But if you're a Buck fan, can you really feel all that great about Giannis's future in Milwaukee? He's not going to stay, and that feels like the only way that Milwaukee can kind of figure out this situation that they're in. It's like they've just shoved this bubble so hard of trying to keep Giannis happy and try to keep this championship window open. And at this point, this bubble's just bloated. Like you need to relieve it at some point. The only way to do that is trading Giannis. So it feels like the Bucks are also in a situation that they just don't have a vision or a plan.
Well, that's why I actually took Memphis as the biggest loser, because they trade Jaren Jackson Jr., which I thought was a building block, and that's fine. They get some return. But I'll go back to what Wendy said on ESPN after the trade deadline when everybody was asking why Ja is still there. And the answer was he has no value. I want to say that again. Ja has no value to the rest of the NBA. They shopped him, and everybody said, nah, we're good. This wasn't a they can't get the package they want for him. This was a no thanks, we're not interested from every phone call. Somehow, some way, the second overall pick that was hyped and looked really good early in his career has become such a liability for Memphis that even when they call people and they say, we'll give you Ja and a subscription to the Jelly of the Month Club, teams are still like, nah, we're good. We're great. Thank you so much. We'll pass on that one. So Memphis is suddenly stuck. They're stuck as a franchise. They're stuck rudderless in direction, and they're stuck with a former superstar that nobody even wants. Speaking of losers, another Luda banger is Act a Fool. So which player is the biggest loser from the first half of the season? The biggest fool, if you will.
I hate to keep going back to the bag. I don't mean to be, ragging on Golden State fans. We were just in San Francisco, had a lovely time. But it's Draymond, right? Like, it's always Draymond. It's always Draymond because he looks like a boohoo crybaby, whining at the refs or, whining at the podium or whining about something that he says in his podcast. So again, maybe that's low-hanging fruit because it feels like Draymond is always boohoo crying, like kind of a boohoo crying loser. But that's no different at this point in the season. And now it's not just, Draymond's saying stuff on his podcast, but he's winning and Golden State's going to make a run in the postseason. It's Draymond's whining to the refs, saying a bunch of stuff that he shouldn't say, and he doesn't have a path to a championship. Oof.
I don't dislike that take. That's a good one from you. I went Anthony Davis just because I remember when AD was acquired to be the future of the Lakers. And then all of a sudden it was like, well, we got rid of Luka, but we got that guy. And then that guy really never played any meaningful basketball for that team, only to be moved to Washington, which is the same as being sent to an irrelevance place. Like, there's just nobody's going to remember what AD's doing. And now he said, well, the future direction of the franchise will impact whether or not I even want to be here. The real question is, are you worth it anymore? We've gone from you are going to be the face of the biggest brand in the NBA. You're going to be the face of one of the biggest brands in all of sports. You are going to lead the next generation for the Lakers. We went from that to, okay, well, trust me. I mean, we had NBA experts out here telling us, no, the Mavs really made the smart move with AD getting rid of Luka because they can win right now with this. No, they can't. And now all of a sudden he goes to Washington where he won't win if he's lucky enough to even get on the court. I want AD to get healthy. I want to see the best of what AD can be. I fear that we're never going to see a healthy AD. And by the time we do, we won't give a damn because, frankly, who cares about AD anymore? That is the ultimate. When you've gone from being the face of the next generation of the Lakers to an irrelevant player for the Wizards, things have gone wrong. That's for sure. We are at the halfway point. Go ahead, Caroline.
I mean, when the commentary around you went from, AD, one of the best defenders in the league, a key piece of any championship team, to your team doesn't want you anymore, but we don't know a path out for them because nobody else wants you and you don't have any trade value. Like, that's a pretty big 180 for AD.
Oh, how the mighty have fallen for AD for
Truly.
sure. It's going to be a wild weekend for the NBA. I'm sure we will keep you caught up on all of it. But coming up, it's never too early to figure out who's headed to the playoffs. Are we in or are we out on those Dallas Cowboys and those Philadelphia Eagles? We'll answer that and more coming up.
At the very top of my list, we need finality to Aspinall versus Gunn.
Yeah.
We need finality to this.
Have to.
I just want to see this fight play out because guess what? It was a very entertaining fight and it was playing out in a way that I think a lot of people didn't think it would play out. So I need to see that fight. I have to see that fight. The division needs to see that fight. They both need to see that fight. They both earned it and deserved it, and we can't move on without that fight.
Do the Spurs still take Dylan Harper over Con Knipple and VJ Edgecombe?
I think for me, if I was to do it all over again, I would still take the best pick available, and that is Dylan Harper. I mean, you see he just is such an elite creator.
Prior to the draft, Mo, I was pretty consistent in saying that I would trade down and take a Con Knipple. Con at 4, I still think would have been the best possible outcome for San Antonio, and I feel that way even more strongly at this point.
All football teams are dams. Some of them have a ton of cracks. Some of them have a few cracks. It's all about who faces enough water pressure from their schedule to expose the cracks. Most of the time, when you're playing in the Big Ten or the SEC, you're going to face several tests that will expose your cracks. I don't think Ohio State did this year. They faced Texas early in the year, and they just never faced enough pressure to expose the cracks.
Did you notice that the scoring totals had fallen in the new year, that the New Year's resolution apparently was to bring physicality back?
A couple of years ago when it was all of a sudden everybody scored 50, 60, 70. And then like the air went out of the ball for a month. And it was like in the middle of the season, the way the rules were being called kind of changed and scoring started to drop.
Look, to be fair, Dan, it could be, hey, everyone just magically figured out how to play legal defense.
You see in front of you the odds to win the NFC. Never too early to take a look at that. As the Seahawks with the shortest odd, then the Rams, Packers, Eagles. We had a little bit of fun yesterday talking about the AFC. If you haven't seen it yet, check it out on our YouTube page. It's out there for you. But here's the premise. It's simple. We'll go through some NFC teams that we believe are right on that cusp or constant contenders. And we're going to figure out in or out. Will they make the playoffs next year? This is our way too early chance to predict. We went through a bunch of AFC teams yesterday. Today, let's start with the NFC. And let's start with the Philadelphia Eagles, Caroline, because a year ago, it was the Philadelphia Eagles defending Super Bowl champions. Now it's the Philadelphia Eagles, constant chaos. Nobody's sure how good they are. Are they in or out on the playoffs next year?
My initial thought was, and in our rundown, I initially put in because I thought this roster is far too talented to miss out on the postseason. But I also could have said that about the Lions this past year. They found themselves on the outside looking into the postseason. That I said in because, of course, this team's too good. This team's defense is too good. You have too many weapons offensively. But the more and more I thought about it, the more and more I thought about how Jeff Stoutland didn't want to be there, one of the most well-respected offensive line coaches in the NFL. You are worse without Jeff Stoutland. Why couldn't Nick Sirianni find a better option at offensive coordinator? Why didn't Nick Sirianni pull the plug on Kevin Patullo sooner when it was so clear and so obvious to all of us that Kevin Patullo was actively hurting that football team? Well, why is the A.J. Brown situation continue to come up, not just week over week, but year over year? This is now a 2-year sample size of A.J. Brown being very publicly and visibly frustrated with this organization. Why was Nick Sirianni's best response to some morale issues in the locker room a giant inflatable bunny rabbit? Weird. It just feels like there's this weird dark cloud that's been hanging over the Philadelphia Eagles ever since they won a Super Bowl. And that kind of, virus essentially is so damaging to a football team. So despite all of the talent that they have in this roster, how much I believe in this roster, I don't believe in Nick Sirianni. And there's plenty of reasons to point to as the reason being why. So what my initial thought was I think they're out next year.
Yeah, I'm out until proven otherwise, especially, look, I'll go back to the offensive line coach. That's not something you and I necessarily spend every day breaking down. But here's what I do know. Every guy that I'm friends with that played in the league or played high-level college football that was an offensive lineman immediately told me that was a massive deal. So that has resonance with me. Like that resonates with me, I should say. So you've got an offensive line that, frankly, has been a massive key to how they do business in Philadelphia. The ineffectiveness of the tush-push at times last year made a massive difference in their offense overall. So now you lose your offensive line coach. That's going to cause some sort of a drop, a fall off in production. And then Mannion is an offensive coordinator. We have no idea. We just have no idea. We've seen coordinators go really well in Philly. We've seen it go really poorly in Philly. But nobody can truly just come up with the answer of what went wrong last year and how to easily fix it. This is an offense with a bunch of stars that, frankly, has not lived up to it. So I'm out on Philly making the playoffs because I haven't heard anybody give me the right math to figure out how it's going to be drastically better next year. And it feels like dysfunction becomes the ruler for the organization the first time things go wrong. So as I've said many times, the next time things are stable and just normal in Philadelphia will be the first time that they've been stable and normal in Philadelphia in a long time. So even though they're wildly talented, I've got them out. What about the 49ers who seem to be, kissed by the radiation injury bug? I don't know. But what I do know is that the 49ers can't stay healthy. So what do we got here?
I struggled with this one as well because I believe so much in that coaching staff. I believe that Kyle Shanahan had, the resume to be coach of the year this year, but I say out because a big reason why San Francisco was able to pick up so many pieces of their season is because of Christian McCaffrey, because he was their offense this year. But if there's one thing that we've learned about Christian McCaffrey throughout the last several years is that he hasn't been largely available. And he's also an aging running back. So if Christian McCaffrey is not nearly as available as he was this past season, then where is a large part of your offense coming from? Because you don't have Brandon Ayuk. George Kittle will be out for a big portion of next season. That the story about this 49ers team has been injury. I know they were able to win several games despite the injury bug that bit them so terribly this past season, but I can't count on all of the perfect pieces fitting together for them next season as well as they did last year. So in the NFC West, when you have the reigning Super Bowl champs in the Seattle Seahawks, the Rams that aren't going anywhere, I don't know if I see a path for the 49ers next season.
I respect your doubt on it, and it makes a lot of sense. So one thing I would say, though, is that they faced all of those gauntlets, and they faced much of this year without Brock Purdy at the quarterback position. They won games with Mac Jones. Like in Kyle Shanahan, I trust in the regular season. In Kyle Shanahan, I do not trust in the Super Bowl. In Kyle Shanahan, I trust in the regular season. So I think, look, a 12-5 last year, if you look at all of the injuries they sustained, a 12-5 feels impossible. I don't know that they'll be 12-5 again next year, but this to me feels like a wild card type playoff team that is still battling in the West. They just have to figure out what this injury bug is, all conspiracy theories aside. How about the Lions? The Lions dropped off. They did not make the playoffs, but as Frank Schwab has pointed out many times to us, The advanced analytics showed that the Lions are almost the exact same team they were the year before, just didn't break for them this year. So do you put them back in the playoffs?
Yeah, the football gods giveth and the football gods taketh away. Whenever you have a game with a ball that's shaped as funkily as a football is, sometimes the ball just doesn't bounce your way. And that was the case for the Lions this past year. It's not an indictment on the roster, it's not an indictment on their talent, but they did lose both of their coordinators. And you and I both talked last season about how that could have been an issue for the Lions. And of course, it was. It did rear its ugly head. That's a lot of change at the top when you're experiencing a brain drain. But I don't think that's going to be the case moving forward. I think the football gods giveth to the Lions this upcoming season. I believe in Jared Goff. I believe in that roster. I do believe in Dan Campbell as a kind of galvanizer for that team after a disappointing season this past year. Lions are in.
Now, I put him back in just because too much talent, but you're right. Like, I'm nervous. I'll say this. It's the first time in this Dan Campbell era I've been really nervous about where the Lions are headed because they have enough talent. They should win 12 or 13 games constantly, but the coaches need to get it right. They need to be better. And, I keep going back to Amon-Ra St. Brown last year telling us loudly, hey, we got guys in the room that know football. Like, this isn't going to be a big deal. Then it was a big deal. Let's see how they adjust this year in this coordinator revolving door. What about the Chicago Bears? All right, the Chicago Bears, in or out? Last year, a wild year. So is it sustainable? Is this the beginning of an era, in or out?
I think the Bears are in. I know that the Bears have been a regression candidate because maybe they had that little bit of magic. They were kissed by the Chicago Pope, and there was just some sort of supernatural that seemed to go the Bears' way. But I don't think it was just based on luck. I think it's also because the Bears have a lot of high-level young talent. That's the key to winning in the National Football League and piecing together consistent winning seasons is young talent that continues to develop year over year. I believe in Ben Johnson. I don't think it was a fluky year this past year and that Ben Johnson can't be a head coach in this league. I think Ben Johnson is the next Sean McVay in the NFL. I think that Caleb Williams only gets better week over week and year over year. And then you have all of this young talent that experienced their second year in the league or their rookie season in the league. I can only think that in year 2 and year 3 respectively that they're just that much better. I know the schedule is harder this season, but I believe in this Bears team. They're not going anywhere.
I struggled with this one because I agree with everything you just said. I believe in the core foundational pieces of the Chicago Bears, and frankly, I believe a lot in Caleb Williams. But this was a really lucky year, and that's okay. Like, they just had a lot of things break their way that changed sort of the trajectory of their season. It felt like, the comeback kid portion of this was such a great part of the story, but I don't know how sustainable that is. And I kept looking around and thinking 11-6 in a year where everything broke right. If that means that in my mind, they're probably about a 9-win team, maybe a 10-win team, does that get you in? And I struggle because I tried to put a lot of playoff teams in. There's only room for so many. So even though I believe they are a playoff caliber football team, I'll go back to something you said on the 49ers. I struggle with the path that puts the Packers, who I believe are probably a playoff team, the Lions, who I believe are probably a playoff team, and the Bears in, while also putting the 49ers in and the Rams. You know what I mean? So the math just gets hard to map. I'm going to take the Bears out of the playoffs. Small regression, still a very good football team. They are right on the line for me. What about America's team, the Dallas Cowboys? The Dallas Cowboys missed the playoffs. Do they this all rebound this year? Are they in or are they out?
I think they're out. Look, I know someone from the NFC East has got to get into this thing. And I know I said the Eagles were out. Now I'm saying the Cowboys are out. I don't think the Commanders are going to go into irrelevancy forever. I think the Giants are going to be improved, but I have a really hard time believing in the Cowboys. I've been very hard on Jerry Jones and his roster construction, rightfully so. I don't think it's a guarantee that you're going to get the same level of play out of Dak Prescott next season that you got this past year, especially with a guy that's past that year 30 threshold. I'm not saying I expect Dak to be a total crap bum, but also Dak was playing at an MVP level this past year. You can't predict that every single year. I don't trust Jerry Jones to figure out the defense. That was their Achilles heel this past season. So I don't expect to get the same level of production offensively. I don't trust Jerry Jones to take care of the defense. So for those two reasons, with that, I'm out.
That's interesting to me because I don't think, man, this one's tough. I'm going to put them in. I'm going to put him in, but while acknowledging that part of this is that I just believe in Dak. Like I believe that Dak is an annual MVP candidate. I believe that Dak is the type of quarterback that will absolutely win you a lot of football games. It hasn't happened in the postseason. I get that. That's a separate conversation. For the regular season, I believe that Dak is as impactful for Dallas as Joe Burrow is for Cincinnati. So now I keep asking myself is what's the ceiling for this defense? The Cowboys have some cap issues to work out. They got a lot of contracts they're going to have to restructure. They're going to have to push a lot of money around. I think they have 6 guys that make over $20 million next year. So they've got a lot of different issues they're going to have to figure out to build themselves the right way for the next offseason or for the next season. But I don't believe in Washington next year as we sit today. I think Philadelphia is out. I do believe the Giants are wildly improved, but now it really becomes the Giants or the Cowboys for the division. I think the Giants have a real shot. I think the Giants have a shot at making the playoffs next year. But I look at the proof of concept of Dak and what we've seen from him with the weapons. I believe they're going to franchise and keep T in the building. When you have those wide receivers with that quarterback and you still have Quinnen Williams on the other side, who was a big addition for them defensively, I think the Cowboys aggressively attack the defensive side of the ball in the draft, and somehow, some way, they sneak their way into the playoffs. Like, I don't feel good about this. It is amazing, Caroline, because the NFC has a lot of good football teams and a lot of them that are right on the cusp of are they good or are they not good? A lot of time to tell, but it's just hard to place some of these guys. All right, so
I think
I'm just going to tell you, we're going to keep going. So
we got
from
Godfrey.
the NFC to next year to Stephen Godfrey. Stephen Godfrey going to join us next. We'll get his thoughts on this situation in Atlanta. What's next for James Pearce Jr.? We'll tell you about it.
One school that's doing some work in there right now, very quietly, is the Florida Gators. At the time of us taping this, Florida is sitting there with a top 10 class. And you're like, JD, wait a second. Florida's got a top 10 class? Who have they added? And I think this portal class in general for John Summerall is a good reflection of just the overall vibe, attitude, persona of what you're going to get from John Summerall during his time in Gainesville.
And I've been thinking about the Denver Nuggets here for a little bit. Jamal Murray's gonna have to carry the torch during this program. Like it's, I know it's the Fresh Prince of Bel Air. Look around, no furniture around, but hey, he's gonna have to figure it out. What I will say that helps Denver is the return of this version of Aaron Gordon, and I very specifically mean this version of Aaron Gordon. And I know you might have a twinge of concern that he may do too much, but it was good early, and they need it now.
Have you had a chance to kind of unpack all of it?
Yeah, I don't know that I have yet. I think it's just another reminder of how wild pro football can be. I've lived it so many times. I mean, I think going back a little over 2 years ago when I tore my Achilles to now, there's been a lot of curveballs and a lot of change. And I was told a long time ago in pro football, you got to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I'm reminded of that time and again.
How long do you feel like that window is with Lamar, though?
I think you can get 2 more years of Lamar as a locked-in top 5 guy. And then I think after that is when it's like, okay, maybe he ages to more being a top 12 guy, which is still good. Maybe more of a tier 2 guy in my brain. And then it kind of ages from there. Russ went from like a tier 2 guy that fell off to a tier 3, tier 4 guy. You're going to have that drop off at some point in your career.
If the domestic violence charges against Atlanta Falcons edge rusher James Pearce Jr. go to trial, his ex-girlfriend, Los Angeles Sparks forward Brikea Jackson, will be, quote, willing to testify against him, according to ESPN. This is a very complex situation that involves multiple felony accusations at this point. And to break this down and everything else, our buddy, co-host of College Football Inquirer, Stephen Godfrey, joins us now. You can see his great work on college football, but we're bringing you in for this first. A lot to unpack here. So where are you right now on the latest with this?
This, I think, could be one of the more unique circumstances, cases, situations, whatever you want to call it, in the NFL's relationship with how it deals with domestic violence. I think this is going to potentially and honestly, hopefully change the way that the NFL receives this kind of incident and processes it. It's funny. It's a terrible situation flat out. But I was talking to our producers on this show and talking with other people in sports media. Nobody really wants to talk about it right now, but I think it's something that really, really bears some scrutiny, even though we're in a process in the news cycle where everybody gets their day in court, right? Pierce's lawyers are talking about, hey, you've only heard one side of this. That's great. That's fine. And due process is a real thing, which I completely welcome. But also, I don't know how familiar you guys are with this story. Most of it happened on video, right? It happened on cell phone video as he was being detained by police. This is about as bad as a look as you could have for a professional athlete and their franchise. That's probably where we want to start. So I could ramble about this, but yeah, I welcome y'all's thoughts. And also, so you guys were at the Super Bowl, right? You guys were in San Francisco. You were in the Bay. This thing happens kind of underneath the biggest news cycle of the football year. It's interesting to me how this is going to play out and what kind of pressure is going to be applied on the league and on the Falcons specifically.
And there should be pressure on the Falcons and on the NFL. But I do want to look at the Rickea Jackson side of this. The victim is, as we can see, Sparks star Rickea Jackson. Why is the WNBA side of this, in your opinion, so impactful and important here?
I think it's tricky to talk about, but I understand as a journalist why the WNBA hasn't said anything yet or issued a statement yet. But I'm curious at what point in this process will the WNBA say something, right? Because this is one of their stars, one of their athletes. Nobody should kid themselves about the power and the influence of the NFL and where it has strengths and advantages in media relationships. Like it just fortified its relationship with ESPN, for instance, right? So the coverage of this, and this is kind of why I wanted to talk about this today. I think people need to be mindful of how this is covered, the perspectives that are used, and whose voice is the loudest and whose voice is most recognized as we move forward through this. It's interesting to me early on that her representation has said she will absolutely testify. That is not always the case in DV, in domestic violence cases involving athletes or involving famous individuals. I think that maybe potentially marks a change in how these are going to be received publicly. Like, I think this is me kind of gleaning from this, guys. Like, I don't have, obviously I'm not sourced on this, but what's interesting to me is that she wants to be vocal and she wants to be present in the judicial process and wants to have her voice heard.
I should point out that the quote from his attorney, from Pierce's attorney, says, Mr. Pearce maintains his innocence and urges the public to understand that while allegations have the power to shape a narrative, that is hardly the full, complete story. We look forward to vigorously defending our client and remain confident that he will continue contributing positively to both his team and the community he serves so well. That was their counter statement. He's facing 5 different felony charges. The prison time in this stacks up, and I do mean prison time. So, Steven, I think that's part of what has to be acknowledged here. Like, we always want leagues to speak. In my experience covering the NFL, Roger Goodell's going to wait until the legal process plays out and then have their investigation say what it has to say, because he never wants to underpunish. This is my thesis on it. Usually they let the entire legal process play out, and then he comes out and says, well, we've done our own investigation. Understanding that the legal process and the investigation of the NFL are 2 very different things. They have very different standards, and he can punish whenever he wants. Usually they let this play out. So I don't know. Like, we all want to hear from Roger, but I also think that it's sort of the way that they usually do this, where they step back and they don't say anything, which is equally weird and at sometimes dangerous to me.
That's CYA. Okay, that's what that is. The league wants to cover their ass because they don't want to seem too punitive if something were to happen within the legal process. If they want to wait, that's fine. But I want to be clear about a couple things. When this occurred, the natural reflex among sports media was to say, all right, well, he's definitely getting that 6 games. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Sort of it's this like official, unofficial suspension for DV is like 6 games. Y'all, he may be in prison longer than the suspension if he's convicted of the stack of these felony charges. And I want to be clear, if you're unfamiliar with this story, you have a domestic violence charge. He fought the cops. He hit a police officer with his car. He's accused of stalking as well. This, again, this may be one of the most unique circumstances we've ever seen. And so my question is, does the NFL break its character or its pattern of behavior fits because of the egregiousness of this charge or charges, I should say, the plurality of all this? That's what I'm looking for. I'm really interested in. The Falcons had an introductory press conference for their new staff yesterday, I think, or 2 days ago. It was it was the boilerplate stuff that they had to do legally. Obviously, they're going to say, "Hey, it's disappointing. Can't really talk about it. We're going to let all that play out, et cetera, et cetera." I guess my question is, how can this just be 6 games? How could this, or if you doubled it, could it be 12? And if they cut him tomorrow, if they take the strongest moral high ground and they say, "Hey, James, one, you had character concerns immediately." And let me back up and say this, because I want to say this. Like, I'm a college football reporter. I have been for 20 odd years. I'm just an NFL. I'm a fan of the NFL. I'm not sourced there. But in the course of my work over the years, as you guys would understand, I've picked up sources in the NFL. It's not my job. But when the Falcons drafted James Pearce, I had some of the most ominous messages from sources of mine, just because they know I'm a Falcons fan, saying, "Wait, just wait, just wait." And I thought, and I had people reach back out to me who said that after this arrest occurred, they thought it would be guns and drugs, like not that that's a simple crime or a lesser crime, but you know what I mean, like guy got picked up, he's got a pistol in his car, that kind of deal, right? Or we're driving 120, bag of dope in the car, a little bit more rank and file transgression by NFL player standards. I didn't expect this, but there were warning signs about this individual from the very, very beginning. So I'm curious if the NFL is going to get in front of this developing narrative, because this is going to be a story for a long time, right? Because just the legal process alone, let alone if the WNBA gets involved in any way, shape, or form, which I feel like as a human being they should. I just don't know how they're going to do that yet. But this is going to go on for a long, long time. Why wouldn't the NFL just say, "Hey, look, regardless of what plays out legally, you are under an obligation to represent the shield, right? You are under an obligation to compose yourself in a particular way." I think there's a gray area here, and I know the lawyers who listen to this and watch are probably going to argue against this, that regardless of what happens legally, this man put himself willingly in a stack of negative situations as a bad thing compounded. You guys know what I'm saying here? Like, he has the initial dispute with her, right? She's going to go to the police. She's trying to run her off the road. She successfully contacts the police in Miami-Dade. He then prevents the police from doing their job, has a physical altercation with the police, and then needs 6-7 police to detain. There's steps in series here that I think, regardless of how this plays out in the courtroom, like what they plead down, does he get probation? Is he on, is it a 90-day sort of suspended sentence? Whatever. The league has to make an example here that is about decision-making and their public image. And I don't know if this is the most significant domestic violence incident that I can think of since Ray Rice, because he was caught on video. Like, that incident was on video in an elevator. There was no arguing it. And so I'm curious what the league does here as we move forward.
There are certain crimes that athletes can commit that I can forgive and say, you're a good person that made a bad decision, that you did something bad, and that is not an indictment on your character. This is not one of those things, because like you just said, all of the entire series of events shows a lack of character, a lack of judgment. This isn't the first time, though, that an NFL player has committed a crime that shows a clear lack of judgment. Antonio Brown threw a rock at an Amazon driver. Like, we know all of these stories of gruesome and violent crimes that current or former NFL players have committed. So why is James Pearce different? Why should I believe that the NFL will approach this case with more dire circumstances or maybe more attention than they have in the past?
Well, you don't have a reason to. I can't sit here and say they're going to be different about this. No, they're going to play defense as aggressively as they can, metaphorically speaking, because they want to sweep this away. In fact, they're probably, if I want to be really callous for a second, they're probably thrilled that it happened when it did, and not in a slower news cycle type inside the NFL calendar. Like, all that stuff was going on at the Super Bowl. We're getting ready for all that. And it kind of happened underneath with a team that didn't even make the playoffs. So they're probably happy about that. They have Carolyn. They have no incentive to do any. Like you're dead on. They're almost certainly going to push for this to be as inconsequential as any of those other anecdotes. But I do think the public nature of this, the volume of felony charges, and the fact that key portions of this can't be disputed, and then adding on the fact that the victim is willing to testify and that the victim is a public figure and an athlete, this is going to push this into a territory that the NFL cannot use its mighty media apparatus to simply just kind of whitewash away.
To that point, Godfrey, it feels interesting to me to see how the league handles this because, Jackson has a massive platform as a WNBA star, right? There is the opportunity, and they don't know what else is going to be unearthed. Part of the stalking charge, and I want to again stress this, just one of the 5 felony charges that are against him right now, Pearce right now, would result in a minimum prison sentence of 5 years. So we're talking about if he was found guilty on all the charges up against him, he's facing over 70 years worth of charges. Now that'll get pled down, and we understand all of these things. But what we don't know yet, and I think where the NFL does have to be careful and very nervous, is part of the reason Jackson is willing to testify. She wants her story out there. There is a stalking portion of this in the charges. We don't know what other evidence she has on that, right? The NFL doesn't want to live in a situation where they put Pearce on the field, and then all of a sudden, that's when we start getting more videos of harm done, more pictures of harm done, more information regarding stalking. Like without knowing the full breadth of what she has informationally, like if I'm the NFL, I'm very afraid that no matter what I do here, if I put him back on the field and more evidence comes out, then I look awful. If I don't put him on the field, then I deal with the clapback from the NFL Players Association about not putting him on the field. Like, I understand why they're stuck here, but I do think that her platform forces Roger Goodell to handle this differently.
Yes. And let me say this as a fan for a second. I think, I just got done talking about this on College Football Inquirer. Like, there are franchises in the NFL, and there's programs at the height of college football that stay bad for a reason. Okay? And it's ownership. In college football, we have boosters and it's check writing and all that kind of stuff in NIL. And then in the NFL, if you show me a consistently bad, underperforming, or embarrassing franchise, I'll show you a bad ownership group or an owner that's naive and then appointed an incompetent group of people underneath him to manage the franchise, which I think applies to the Falcons here. I am so sick and tired of this misapplication of the Moneyball theory in football. This individual had a healthy report on his personal nature. This individual was tagged correctly. Now, sometimes the NFL does this in a really negative and disgusting way where you can affect an individual's draft stock. You guys are about to start doing this, right? Because it's February. We're going to go to April. We're going to start talking about draft stock. We're going to start talking about character concerns. Oh, well, anonymous scout says this, and it shows up on Pro Football Talk, and it's actually somebody grinding an axe. Like, I've seen this work against good players before, like good individuals. But this was not this case. People at Tennessee talked about this, where he played football and where she played basketball, I might add. People across the league talked about this. But the former GM of the Falcons, Terry Fontenot, and the Atlanta Falcons decided they're smarter than everybody else in the room. Okay? And if you can't look around the table and find the sucker, you're the sucker. And also, you're the Atlanta Falcons. So you should have figured out you were already the sucker. So I'm disgusted because this wasn't something that came out of the blue, guys. They were in such dire need, and I don't know if the producers can do this in time. If you go back and look at their lack of productivity in pass rush, it was historic leading into this season. Had been for years. They cycled through veteran defensive ends. They could not get production on third down. They were horrible against the pass the entire time that they had Arthur Smith, the end of the Dan Quinn era. They made this decision acting like they could see something in James Pearce that no one else could. And we see this mistake made over and over again because of the stakes in the NFL. But the difference here, it wasn't, hey guys, this wasn't a Michael Penix situation where you said, you know what, he's a really good quarterback. He's got a surgically repaired shoulder and a surgically repaired knee and all this other. We're talking about an individual. They said, watch out. I'm trying not to cuss right now. Watch out. Okay. Red alarm. And they said, nah, it's fine. We got this. And it's this Moneyball idea that we're all smarter than the rest of the room. We're all smarter than the facts presented. that persists in football at the professional level, at the high level of college, because there's so much money at stake. So as a fan, I would love to tell you guys I'm disappointed. And Fitz, like, I know you're a Raiders fan, so like God knows you've lived through your share of like ineptitude and just general dumbassery. But like, I also lived through Michael Vick. And this is not Michael Vick for a number of reasons. One, we're talking about human beings. We're not talking about dogs. Okay? I got dogs running around this house. I'm not trying to make light of what happened. But I think a lot about Michael Vick now because I never thought he would play football again. He went to federal prison, guys. And then he was playing football for the Philadelphia Eagles. And he was supposed to be a franchise savior, a Michael Jordan type transformation for that franchise because he changed the way football was played. So James Pearce is not a generational founded, like he's not going to change the way football is played. But he was what, third for Defensive Rookie of the Year, second, I think, in the voting. 13.5 sacks. Like he had an amazing rookie season, guys. And what scares me the most about this as a fan is I told other fans as soon as this happened, I was like, cut his ass. Hey, we can win 7 games with or without him, and we're going to suck for a while because that's our existence. But you know for a fact you'll be sitting here talking about somebody signing James Pearce if the Falcons cut him.
No.
You know for a fact someone else is going to do this.
You are 1,000%
And that's why this
right.
keeps happening.
Yeah.
You guys can listen to him on College Football Inquirer. Obviously, follow him on social media at 38 Godfrey. The great Stephen Godfrey. Stephen, appreciate all your breakdowns, my friend. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, I'll come back next time. We'll do something more fun.
Thank you, Godfrey.
Appreciate it. All right, from last year's draft to this year's draft, Bucky Brooks going to join us next. We'll get his thoughts on some of the best prospects in all the land coming up next.
Penn State has imported Iowa State. It's the best way I could explain it. Penn State has now taken Rocco Beck. They took RB1. They took wide receiver 1. They took 3 offensive linemen. I detest that this is how college football works at the moment, but it's the way it works at the moment. And that is when you take a head coach, part of the thinking behind hiring the head coach is who he can bring with him. And in Matt Campbell's case, it was basically whoever he wants.
I'm very fascinated to see which direction they go here because I think that Roman, this is the deal with him. He's not terrible. He's not offensive as an offensive coordinator, but he can get you to a certain point. You need somebody else to get you to the next point. I think he's done a good job with Herbert getting him to run more and getting him to push the ball down the field. Now I'd like to see, someone kind of just, again, give him some more quicker options. That's the type of stuff I'd like to see from the next coach.
Tom Aspinall, Cyril Gahn, that needs to be resolved, right? Hamzat Shemaiah versus Sean Strickland. But I will accept Hamzat Shemaiah versus Fluffy Hernandez. If Fluffy beats Sean Strickland, I'll take either of those. Here's another one of my, but you accept these as secondary.
100%.
Armin Sarukian versus UFC lightweight champion. We cannot just keep having Armin doing grappling matches and eating and all this stuff. I'm
kind of okay with it.
No, I'm not. I know you love it.
You get the first pick in the underrated player draft. Who are you taking?
Jalen Duren has never made an All-Star game. He's never made an All-NBA team. He's gotten so much better as a scorer this year. Jalen Duren is like a legit All-Star this year. And so because everybody talks about the Detroit situation like it's trash and Cade Cunningham, I'm going to say he's still a little bit underrated, and he's my number 1 pick.
He is a guy that can come in, and his ability to process, he's a massive prep guy. He's not a guy like Justin Herbert's like, this guy's skill set is so good, we're going to figure it out, just let him be him. He's not that guy. He has great skills, and you saw him create, you saw him make throws, but he's not just like going to take over because of how talented he is. But if he has the pieces around him, he is going to be a machine because he is just so systematic, and he has the ability to recognize when you go to the NFL, it becomes more complex, hiding coverages, disguising, especially on third down. You're not going to fool him.
That was Kirk Herbstreit with us last week at Radio Row, breaking down everything we need to know about Fernando Mendoza. We're going to get the thoughts now from one of my favorite draft guys in the entire business, Bucky Brooks, joining us, obviously NFL analyst for Fox Sports as well. Bucky, appreciate your time. I'm a lifelong diehard Raiders fan, so I was in my feels when Herbie was giving it to me. So give me what you got. Give it to me honestly. Where are you on Fernando Mendoza?
I think Kirk brought up some good points when it comes to Fernando Mendoza. He is a very talented player, but I would say that you don't want to get ahead of yourself when you think that he's going to come and be a game changer. He's more of a managerial type that can operate at a high level. I have made the comparison to Jared Goff in terms of how he will play the game within the right system. The best thing that has happened to Fernando Mendoza is Clint Kubiak bringing his system to the Las Vegas Raiders, because that system has been one that has turned average players into Pro Bowlers and Pro Bowlers into MVPs. And when surrounded by the right talent, he can have a lot of success. But if you're thinking that he, on the strength of his right arm, is going to change the franchise, that's not going to be the case. But with the marriage with Clint Kubiak, Brock Bowers, Aston Genty, and whoever they can bring to occupy that number one receiver role, that could be enough to have him have a lot of success and for the Raiders to return to prominence.
You know, Bucky, as you know very well, this time of year is smokescreen time of year, lies, gossip, all sorts of stories coming out around the draft. But there have been some reports that have come out behind the scenes that maybe Fernando Mendoza isn't the slam dunk number one overall pick that we initially thought that he was. Maybe Fernando Mendoza isn't the potential savior for the Raiders franchise. Do you buy into that? Do you agree that maybe it's not a slam dunk that the Raiders do go Fernando Mendoza number one overall?
I think he's going to be the number one overall pick because their biggest position of need, quarterback, is what he plays in that. Now, if you ask me, is he the best player in the draft? No, he's not the best player in the draft, but it's the combination of things that make him the number one. And in this system that they're going to put together with Kubiak, it works. I'm sure that they would love to make it work with Geno Smith, but I just don't think that's a possibility. To me, it just makes sense that he's going to be the pick, regardless of whether he's the number one player in college football. The need and what he feels and what he brings is enough to help the Raiders make the move.
Bucky,
who is the best player in this draft?
I think the debate will come down between Arvell Reese, linebacker from Ohio State, and his teammate Caleb Downs. If we're just talking about the best player, regardless of position of value, the debate has to be with those two guys. Unfortunately, the draft is not about the best players. It's about kind of playing the connect the dots game. And this player fits this need, and he's best on our board at that spot, so it works that way. But if we're just talking about, hey, we're going to the playground, and I get first pick and I get to pick the best player, it's either Reese or Downs for my book.
So a year ago, we were talking to Titans fans, and everybody was saying, oh, next year's draft class. Go to next year's draft class. Now we sit here this year, feel like we're saying the same thing, next year's draft class. When you take Fernando out of the equation, how does everybody else handle this year's class versus next year's class and trying to figure out when and how to get a quarterback?
Yeah, no, it's challenging because outside of Fernando Mendoza in this class, there's not the guy that's the slam dunk first-round talent. And what everyone was hopeful for, you think about the Browns and all the teams that had these picks, the Jets. Oh, they're going to be 3 quarterbacks. We can take one. Well, when Dante Moore pulls out, some of the guys underperform, you don't have the same quarterbacks. Next year's class potentially could be loaded, but we got to see how they continue to evolve. Arch Manning would be the name that people talk about. Julian Sainz would be there. We'll talk about Lenore Sellers and Dante Moore and others. It appears to be right now that there are going to be more options, but we'll never know until they start playing. And then there'll be a random name that'll pop up that also will be in the conversation as a first-round talent.
We hear every year, oh, this is a great so-and-so draft or a not so great so-and-so draft. So when you look at the 2026 draft, which position do you think is it a great year for and not a great year for?
Quarterback is not a great year for quarterbacks just because outside of Fernando Mendoza, you're stretching to find one that is really a first-round talent. Ty Simpson may go in the first round, but he only played 13, 14 games. That's not enough sample size to say that he's ready to dominate in the league. So quarterback is a really weak class. I would say the strengths of this draft would be offensive line. There's some really good offensive linemen. It may not be the marquee players that we're used to seeing, but the offensive line has some talent. Fano, Mawagoa, Lemieux. Like, there are enough guys that you feel great about that. I would say the class of wide receivers is also fantastic. Jordan Tyson, Mekhi Lemon, Carnell Tate. So many guys that can come in as Zachariah Branch. People talk about Denzel Boston, on and on and on. There are a lot of wide receivers and playmakers that can make their mark. I would say the pass rush class is up and down. There's some good players, Ruben Bain, David Bailey, but I don't know if they're great players. And so you got to make sure they're the right fit for the system that you have.
What do you do then if you're a GM and you're sitting there and, let's say, to your point, you've got an edge rusher there that's clearly the best edge rusher in this year's class. There's a big drop-off, but maybe they're not worthy of the 4th or 5th pick in the draft. Like, we always say trade down. It takes 2 people to make that happen, Bucky. So how do you approach it when you're trying to figure out value added at the top of the draft?
Yeah, I think what you have to do, if you can just keep it simple, take really good players. Like, just take a really good player, regardless of where you're picking. You can't go wrong if you take a great player. So try and find who the great players are on the board, rank them from 1 to 75, 1 to 100, and then just systematically go down that process. And whoever's there at whatever pick you're selecting, take the best player, because when you have good players, it gives you an opportunity to improve the talent on the team. And also, when you have a surplus at a position, you can trade that off to get what you need at another position. So you can't go wrong just taking a great player.
We've seen the transfer portal and NIL and COVID years keep college football players in college football longer. Like, we saw Montana linebacker Solomon Taliapupu just was granted a 9th year of eligibility, So as somebody who has covered the draft and has done it very well for a very long time, how have you seen these changes in college football affect the amount of talent that's available in the NFL draft?
I actually believe it'll make it better. Before, we were having so many underclassmen that were coming out before they were ready. And you just see a lot of guys that were good college players that would go undrafted. Now, I would say you're probably getting a better product in the National Football League, particularly as it comes to the quarterbacks. Quarterbacks that now are making $5-6 million, staying in school, getting those extra reps, more time on task, should bring about a better player when they get to the league. And for some of those other players, now we're at the point where the guys that are declaring are the guys that are the slam dunks, the guys that everyone knows they're 1st or 2nd round talents. Outside of that, they're staying in school. They're having more opportunities to develop. The one area of concern with the transfer portal is people aren't staying at the same program to fully develop all the way. So guys that used to be at Alabama for 4 and 5 years, now they're popcorning around. And so they never really settle. And so sometimes they may not be as fully developed as the traditional blue blood prospect would be. But outside of that, they're staying a lot longer in college. And typically more reps, more practice time leads to a better player when they get to the pros.
Bucky, I know we got to get you out of here, but I always love draft guys. Always got a sleeper they fall in love with. Is there somebody that's on your radar we're not talking enough about?
I can't call him a sleeper because everyone knows him, but I would say the wide receiver Chris Brazzell from Tennessee is someone that everyone is buzzing on just because he's such a vertical playmaker. He's someone that puts the ball in the paint. He has tremendous speed and quickness. I think he's going to show out at the combine. He is someone that everyone needs to pay attention to because this draft class is terrific at wide receiver. May not have the marquee names, but there can be guys in the 2nd round that have immediate impact.
You do great work, man. Really a huge fan. Thanks for coming on with us. Follow him on Twitter at Bucky Brooks. Can't wait to see the rest of your draft breakdowns, my friend. Thanks for hanging out with us today.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Bucky.
One of the best in the business. Does a great job breaking it down. I can't wait to dive into the wide receivers now. What the football? Coming up next, Yahoo Sports Daily.
At the very top of my list, we need finality to Aspinall versus Gunn.
Yeah.
We need finality to this.
Have to.
I just want to see this fight play out because guess what? It was a very entertaining fight and it was playing out in a way that I think a lot of people didn't think it would play out. So I need to see that fight. I have to see that fight. The division needs to see that fight. They both need to see that fight. They both earned it and deserved it, and we can't move on without that fight.
Do the Spurs still take Dylan Harper over Con Knippel and VJ Edgecombe?
I think for me, if I was to do it all over again, I would still take the best pick available, and that is Dylan Harper. I mean, you see he just is such an elite creator.
Prior to the draft, Mo, I was pretty consistent in saying that I would trade down and take a Con Knippel. Con at 4, I still think would have been the best possible outcome for San Antonio, and I feel that way even more strongly at this point.
All football teams are dams. Some of them have a ton of cracks, some of them have a few cracks. It's all about who faces enough water pressure from their schedule to expose the cracks. Most of the time when you're playing in the Big Ten or the SEC, you're going to face several tests that will expose your cracks. I don't think Ohio State did this year. They faced Texas early in the year, and they just never faced enough pressure to expose the cracks.
Did you notice that the scoring totals had fallen in the new year, that the New Year's resolution apparently was to bring physicality back?
A couple of years ago when it was all of a sudden everybody scored 50, 60, 70, and then like the air went out of the ball for a month, and it was like in the middle of the season, the way the rules were being called kind of changed and scoring started to drop.
Look, to be fair, Dan, it could be, hey, everyone just magically figured out how to play legal defense.
Seattle Public Schools Super Bowl parade is not an excused absence. All right, there we go. Yeah, let's just officially boo Seattle Public Schools right out of the gates on Yahoo Sports Today. That's not going to get us any clapback on social media. People will be very rational about it. We love to have a little bit of fun with what we like to call WTF, which obviously stands for what the football? Seattle Schools made it clear, not an excused absence. I go back and forth on this one. Like, as a sports fanatic, I think, okay, but also it's not the school district's job to tell you to skip school. It's your job to skip school. I skipped it without excuse, or my parents took me out of school for the right moments. I think parents can handle this one on their own. They didn't need the excuse on the absence.
There were plenty of days, dare I say, every single year of my K through 12 education where I mysteriously got sick, and it just so happened to be every single year on Cardinals opening day. And I just so happened to be wearing a Cardinals shirt, and my dad, who came to take me out of school because I didn't feel well, also happened to be wearing Cardinal stuff. So if you want your kids to be out of school, just get creative with it. But also, you got working parents out there. They need school for childcare. So it would be so difficult for so many of these working parents to have to now find a babysitter or somebody to watch their kids because they're out of school because of the Seahawks parade. They might not even be a Seahawks fan. So I know that it's everyone's initial reaction to say, boo, no fun. But hey, these schools have jobs to do. Just make it a hooky day.
Yeah, I mean, there is nuance to it that nobody cares about in
sick.
sports. We just want our sports. But, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, like, we can all find the inspiration from somewhere and skip school. You are
get
right.
creative.
There's certainly families that can't easily take a day off. And, to be deep for a second, there are kids that rely on the school lunch program to have their meals for the day. So certainly there's more depth to it than just not getting to go to the parade. But Seattle's parade was on display. Also, I'm just going to say, if you brought your kids to the parade, did you cover their ears when there was a little bit of potty mouth there? Ernest Jones IV had a message there where I'm summarizing, as he said, if you have something to say about my quarterback, my offensive line, my defense, or my city, I have 2 words for you. The second word was you. And the first word, I like my job, so I'm not going to tell you what it was. I'm just saying.
Football U.
Football, yeah. It was FU, which stands for Football University. That's what they were putting on at the parade. Are you pro parade or anti parade, by the way, or do you have a parade stance?
I am pro parade. Who's anti parade? Okay, fun suckers. Okay, Ebenezer Scrooge. What?
Okay.
It's a lovely celebration of people who are coming together. Who's against that? Losers.
There are people out there that are anti. I frequently was made fun of in Las Vegas on the local Las Vegas radio station for part of my intro to bring me in. They let everybody know that I took the time to fly across country just to see a parade. Yeah, I did. I went to the Aces parade. I went to the Golden Knights parade. Let's go. I went to one of the Aces parades. They had many. But yeah, I was at Golden Knights parade. I'm out there throwing the confetti in the air, having the time of my life. I'm all in on these championship parades. Thank you. We're going to let my freak flag fly. All right, so let's get into some more What the Football. Steelers great. Joey Porter went on Cam Hayward's podcast and absolutely unloaded the clip on all things Ben Roethlisberger. This is just part of the quote. He's just not a good teammate. He knows that. Anybody in the Steelers building knows that. He went on about the things that Ben didn't do. He went on about the fact that there's a reason Ben wasn't a captain, that he didn't sign stuff for people, that he wasn't supportive. He was just a terrible teammate. Essentially, in essence, saying that Ben now needs to keep the Steelers out his mouth. What do you think on that? What the football?
So I'm not surprised that Ben Roethlisberger wasn't a great teammate, allegedly. Like, I think we've all seen things that have unfolded in Ben Roethlisberger's personal and professional life. It doesn't really surprise me. But here's why I have an issue with what Joey Porter said. This comes on the heels of Ben Roethlisberger on his podcast saying that it was time for Mike Tomlin to step away. I have to think that has something to do with this. That Joey Porter has, some qualms with Ben Roethlisberger, maybe, breaking the Steelers brotherhood and making Steelers business part of his podcast business. And I do understand that. I do understand, football guys keeping things in-house. You don't talk poorly about your organization. I get it. I mean, these are two guys that are part of the Steelers fraternity, won Super Bowls there. Joey Porter coached for the Steelers. His kid plays for the Steelers. Like, that is as much Steeler guy as you can get. But isn't Joey Porter doing the exact same thing that he has an issue with Ben Roethlisberger doing? Like, he had an issue with Ben Roethlisberger breaking the code of the fraternity. Joey Porter's doing that too. He's going on a podcast and breaking the code of the fraternity by airing Ben Roethlisberger's dirty laundry. How about we just don't talk about each other at all on podcasts?
But then would there be podcasts anymore? I mean, how many athletes would go on podcasts if the rule was don't talk about anybody? I love your idea.
But if you have an issue with it, don't do it yourself.
You are 1,000% right. That I'm a big believer in staying out of the drama and controlling the controllables. It makes me a very boring friend. I get it, but I'm with you 100% on that. All right, while we're What the Footballing, we've had now multiple guests on, and I ask every guest the same thing that breaks down the NFL draft. I ask them to give me a glowing review of Fernando Mendoza so I can get in my feels. However, during his introductory press conference, Clint Kubiak was kind of cagey. He was asked about the Raiders drafting Fernando, and he made it clear as far as who the first pick will be. We have a lot of tape to watch to figure out who it will be. So you got Kubiak at SpyTech saying one thing about it while Mark Davis seems to say another. What the football, Caroline?
That's what they should say. Like, take everything that you hear from now until draft day with a grain of salt. Everything is posturing. Everything's a smokescreen. Everything is a lie. Everything is gossip. Everything that everyone says, that a coach, a GM, whatever it might be, is said to confuse you. Because if for some reason during the draft, everybody feels like they have to play their own little game of guess who. That's what Clint Kubiak should be saying. You shouldn't be saying, yeah, we're so excited, we're going to draft him number 1 overall. Because what if somebody comes calling with a massive haul for 15 first-round picks for all of these all-pro players? That's worth it for the Raiders to trade. Like, the Clint Kubiak and the Raiders should be doing that. There has been some, talk about maybe Fernando Mendoza isn't the guy. I don't believe that, but Clint Kubiak's just doing his job.
Yeah, actually, I fully agree with you. One thing that stood out to me in the press conference was that he did mention when he was asked about some of the guys on the roster, Ashton Genty, Brock Bowers, he kept saying, I have a lot of tape to dive into. Like, he hasn't really watched the Raiders. Do we think that Clint Kubiak, while he was out here trying to get his team through a Super Bowl, was also watching tape on Fernando Mendoza? I just don't think so. So, like, I think it's also fair to say, got a lot of tape to break down. If I have anything to critique, it's why a blue suit. Come on, Caroline. He knew he was taking the job. His family knew he was taking the job. You're wearing a dark blue suit. I get it. He's the Seahawks. So he probably only had dark blue. But, like, nobody in the family thought to buy a pure black suit before he does his introductory press conference? What are we doing?
Not my wheelhouse to speak on men's fashion. But what I have heard from men's fashion is some guys are just blue suit guys. Like, some guys are just navy suit guys. Like, my fiance doesn't like how he looks in a black suit. It's either a tux or a blue suit. So maybe Clint Kubiak's a blue suit guy. At least it's a dark blue. It's a navy.
I kind of felt like Clint.
Seersucker suit.
I feel like Clint realized at the last second, oh God, I have to have a suit, and then looked in the closet and had like one. He strikes me as a hoodie guy,
He's like I only
a fellow
have
hoodie
Seahawks
brother.
sweatpants.
Look, and that's the life to live. We'll be back right here tomorrow at 9 a.m. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. Come back tomorrow for more Yahoo Sports Daily. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.
Give us your breakout fighters of 2026.
You're not going to believe that. Number one is Manchester top teams, Atiba Gutierrez. I think he's going to be the next big African star. Already is.
He's chiseled out of stone. He's got unbelievable power, great skill, huge for the weight class. Very, very impressive. And again, you speak to the guys over at Manchester top team, they could not be more excited about his potential.
Usually I would dunk on a team that's 8-9 going to the playoffs. You don't deserve it. For Carolina, celebrate it. This was a big step forward season. However you got there, you wanted some hope. You wanted something to be happy about. You backed into it, fine. I don't care. The Panthers did have some quality wins this year. They did seem to be making progress. So for the Panthers, hey, step forward, good job, celebrate it. It's a really nice year for the Carolina Panthers to win this division no matter how they did it.
I don't know how anyone could expect Kalen DeBoer to get Alabama back to where Nick Saban had it, because he's not going to. I would suggest to you that had Nick Saban stuck around at Alabama, he wasn't getting Alabama back to where Nick Saban had it a decade prior. And that's Nick literal Saban. I don't think Kirby Smart's getting Georgia back to what Georgia was a few years ago. Dabo's not going to get Clemson back to what Clemson was. It's almost like the entire world has changed.
Oh, let's get to another factory of sadness. The Atlanta Falcons, who fired Raheem Morris after 2 8-9 seasons.
You got Bijan Robinson, you got Drake London. That was what Raheem Morris said when they asked him, why did you take this job?
Yep.
And you still got those guys. And you still got those two guys.